So you're thinking about making the move to Florida from Pennsylvania, but you have some concerns? I had those same concerns myself when I moved with my family a few years ago, and I'd love to address them with you. So I was born and raised in Pennsylvania, just outside of Philadelphia. We lived right on the border of New Jersey, and I did not want to move to Florida initially. I was very hesitant. I loved visiting. We loved Disney World, but I was very hesitant to actually make the move. I knew it was something that my husband really wanted to try, my father really wanted to try, and I considered making it for about 5 years. I decided I would try it for 1 year, and if we didn't like it, we were moving back up just outside of Philadelphia where we were from. And needless to say, we've been here for 3 years and we love it. So I hope to share some insight with you and answer any questions or hesitations that you may have. So let's get into it. Hi, if this is your first time to the channel, be sure to click subscribe and tap the bell for notifications so you can stay informed on everything there is to know about living in Central Florida. My name is Stephanie, and I get calls, texts, emails from people every day, just like you, looking to make the move to Central Florida. I relocated with my family a few years ago, and we absolutely love it, and I hope to provide some insight and value as you consider your move to Central Florida as well. And if you are considering making the move to Central Florida, feel free to give me a call, click the link in the description below, fill out that form, you'll get a free relocation guide, and I'd love to connect with you to see if I can support you on your home search here in Central Florida. So first, you want to understand the differences. If you're looking for specific pros and cons that I've laid out of living in Central Florida, you'll want to check out this video above, as I laid out what I felt were the most important pros and the most important cons of living here in Central Florida. But aside from that, living in Florida is very different from the Northeast. The terrain itself is different. You have very flat land here. There are many bodies of water throughout the state and obviously surrounding the state. So that is definitely different if you are not right on the coast. We obviously have different weather. So yes, there are hurricanes. We also had hurricanes up north. I've experienced 3 now down here. And you know, these homes are designed to withstand these types of winds. Is there damage and flooding? Of course, depending on where you live. Habitat and wildlife as well. Yes, there are alligators, there are snakes, there are bugs. Those are some of the main questions I always get. And to be honest with you, I was on the hunt to find alligators every time I came to Florida, and I rarely came across them. Not to say they're not here, they are definitely here, but it's far and few between that I encounter anything unless I'm going to look for it. Now, do I go swimming in lakes here? No. So that's a personal choice. Many Floridians who were born and raised here do and have no issues with that, but that's just something that was a tough transition for me, and I don't know that I'll ever get used to. And the great thing about living in Central Florida is you can easily drive to the Gulf or the Atlantic within 2 hours, depending on where you're located. And the beaches are beautiful and they're free. Next, Florida is known as the Sunshine State, and that's exactly what it brings. You have beautiful weather about 8 months of the year, and then you have about 4 months of heat and humidity and rainstorms. And to be honest, we're just inside in the AC or in the pools during that time. There's also a difference in the roads and the cleanliness. So we don't have that overcast, dreary factor that we get often in the Northeast. And down here, aside from the sunshine, you have that clean, well-maintained roads and neighborhoods. Every time we go back up north to visit, it's just a shock in the difference. And it's really eye-opening. So down here, we don't have the potholes because we don't have that extreme cold, freezing weather to deal with. We also don't have a lot of pollution and trash along the roadways. So it's definitely maintained well. You can see that the toll dollars are put into use to keep the roads well maintained down here. And that's definitely appreciated. Another factor that we considered a few years ago prior to the boom in the Florida real estate market was the real estate. Today, it's definitely a booming market down here. Compared to other areas in the Northeast, you still can get a great value down here. The other thing that I really liked about Florida was there are new homes being built everywhere you go. So you can select the lot, you can select the home, you can select what you're looking for exactly. In the Northeast, we've been established for a while, so you're pretty much looking for the home that's already been built and what you can put an offer in on and possibly renovate to make it your own. Down here in Florida, there's a lot more options and choices in terms of what you would like. So if you want a custom design home, you can definitely do that down here. So for me, I was relocating with my daughter at the time. We now have a son as well. And one thing I didn't realize in the Northeast when we purchased our home up there was that her nursery was going to be on the second floor and our master was on the first. So I knew with our second home, the one that we ended up building down here, that I needed to be on the same floor as my two young children. It makes life and nights much easier. But that's something you can look for and design even down here in Florida. The next factor I considered was the cost of living. Depending on your specific city, you can actually go to Forbes and type in the city and see the cost comparison. So I'll link that in the description below for you. We are located just north of Orlando in Central Florida, and originally we were just north of Philadelphia. So the cost of living in Orlando was slightly lower than outside of Philadelphia, but overall it's very, very comparable. So if you were moving from Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, you're going to look about the same in terms of cost of living. As far as home values, you can get great home size. You have tons of tax benefits down here in comparison to Pennsylvania. Another factor that I considered was lower taxes. Now, depending on where you live down here in Florida, the taxes can be very comparable to the Northeast, but overall the taxes really are better. So we don't have the state income tax that we have in the Northeast. We don't have the extreme property taxes for the most part, really again, depending on where you decide to live or build here in Florida. We also have homestead exemption down here, which can alleviate about $50,000 in assessed value of property taxes. It also caps any tax increases annually to 3%. So that's a great perk, and you can file for that before March 1st of any given year that you do move down here and declare Florida as your primary residence. So one of my main hesitations in moving to Florida, being a teacher prior, were the schools and the education and really the rap that it gets compared to the Northeast. So it took me about 5 years of researching to really identify where we wanted to be in Florida to ensure that our children were going to get a great education. We ended up settling in Seminole County, which is in north central Florida, and we chose that because it was a top-rated school district in the state. I did some research with greatschools.org and other websites to identify if these schools were comparable to where we currently were residing in the Northeast, and they were. And so what I liked about that was with Seminole County specifically, we were close to the beach, just like we were in the Northeast. It was a short drive. We were close to the airport, so we could travel home. There was an auto train option to the Northeast, which is a phenomenal way to travel without the stress and bring your car. You also have the attractions available, so there's always something to do. So whether it's the theme parks or the natural springs or just fine dining, there's so much available here, and I loved that about Central Florida. So if you really do your research with schools, you will see there's a variety with excellent ratings, whether it's public or charter or private. There are tons of options, and I do encourage you to do your research because that was something that was holding me back for so long. And as a teacher, I can tell you I feel very confident in the education that my daughter is receiving here in the public school system. Also, I do want to mention one thing that sticks out with the schooling specifically that I love is the Southern hospitality factor. So down here in Central Florida, there are many transplants from the Northeast and really all over the country, but there are people who were raised here and they have that Southern hospitality. So my children are coming home from school and saying, yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am. And it just warms my heart because I love that they're being raised with those manners. That's not really something you find in the Northeast. So one thing that is an adjustment is the medical attention. So I will say these past few years, we've had our fair share of experiences with the medical industry, and we came from where there's CHOP and UPenn, and there's these hospitals that are just renowned for their services. My son, this could be a whole separate video in and of itself, but my son required open heart surgery, multiple open heart surgeries really, at 8 months. And I cannot tell you enough, when we first heard that he needed that, we thought for sure we were going back to CHOP because that's where we were from. And we felt so confident with this surgeon, and we truly believed that we were called to be here so he could have his surgeries performed by this specific surgeon here in Advent Health Orlando. I cannot speak highly enough. A few weeks later, my husband then needed to have multiple surgeries, and again, absolutely phenomenal care. We are so grateful for this medical industry here in Orlando. Aside from that, a big difference that we are not used to is in the Northeast, we see a primary doctor. If we get sick, we call in, we see that same primary doctor. Down here, these doctors tend to be very full, very busy. It's very rare that you call in for a sickness and are seen by that same primary care physician. And they often recommend that you go to an urgent care or things like that. So there are many urgent cares and other facilities available. So that's always an option. I just sort of prefer to be able to be seen by the same doctor. I will say my children have no issues being seen by their pediatrician anytime, whenever they need to be seen. So obviously there is so much to do here in Central Florida, and we absolutely love that. We've been here for a little over 3 years now, and we still have not experienced everything that Central Florida has to offer. So if you are considering making the move, you're looking for just something different, you want that sunshine without those gray skies for the majority of the year, I highly encourage you to make the move. And if you want some tips on making the move to Florida or relocating with your family, definitely check out my other video linked above to help make your move and transition to Central Florida a smooth one. So I hope you found value in this video, and I hope this encouraged you to make the move and make the jump. One doctor that I spoke with up north before I made the move, and I told him that we were actually moving on a certain date, and he looked at me and said, wow, most people talk about making the move but never actually do it. And that just stuck with me, and I hope that sticks with you, because this has been the best decision, and I cannot imagine not living here in Central Florida. So if you are considering making the move from Pennsylvania down to Florida, I encourage you to do it, give it a shot. I hope you found value in this video, and I hope you love Florida as much as we do. And if you are looking to make that move to Central Florida, please don't hesitate to reach out, shoot me a text, call, fill out the link in the description below, and you will get a free relocation guide. And I'd love to connect with you to help discuss if I can make your move to Central Florida a smooth one. And if you do have more questions aside from the topics that I touched on, feel free to drop them in the comments below, and I'll happily answer them. And if you have any insight and you are a local resident here and would like to provide some value, please drop a comment below as well. If you did find value in this, please don't forget to hit subscribe and tap the bell for notifications so you can stay up to date on everything there is to know about living here in Central Florida. And don't forget, if you're looking to make the move in the next few days or the next few months, feel free to reach out. I'd love to support you on your home search journey here in Central Florida. Thanks for watching. See you next time.